Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Jibran. I'm a fifth-year student, and I'll be discussing probably like the hardest topic in Endurepro, in anatomy of Endurepro, at least for me. Basically, I will be dividing the topic into 3 parts, and then in the end, I will combine the 3 parts and then show it to you in one diagram. Okay, so it makes it easier for you to understand, because the perineum is a very high yield topic, especially certain points about it are very high yield. And it's something that's like I said, it's one of the hard topics in anatomy. So it really needs some imagination and, connecting things and whatnot to understand. So we'll start with, wait just a minute. Okay, so we'll start with what the pelvic floor is. So I guess you guys have another lecture on pelvic floor. Okay, it's basically the levator ani muscles and the coccygeus muscles. So the levator ani, the coccygeus muscle. You also have the piriformis muscle here and the obturator internus. Okay, the levator ani basically forms the pelvic floor. Okay, also known as the pelvic diaphragm. Now, I know this looks complicated, but don't worry, I'm going to simplify it as much as I can. Now, these muscles that we have, they have these deformities. They're not really deformities. When you hear something deform, when you hear the word deformity in anatomy, usually it means when something is trying to give way to another structure, okay, and it changes its structure, okay, typically a muscle. So you can see the first look here at this image. This is, by the way, the doctor slides. These aren't my slides. I just edited them and removed like the extra slides. Okay, so you have the 2 deformities. One is a U-shaped deformity, and the other is the circular one. The U-shaped deformity is in for the urogenital organs, and the smaller circular deformity is for the anus. Okay. They've shown here for the female, for the male. So for the female, you have the urethra, your vagina, you have the perineum body, and the anal canal. We'll go over all of these in this lecture, okay? And I'll try to make it as quick as I can. Okay, the urethra, perineum body, and anal canal, okay? Behind the anal canal is something kind of high yield, kind of important. It's called the anococcygeal raphe. We'll discuss why it's kind of important later, okay? But it basically fixes basically the anal canal to the coccyx. Okay. Okay. So here's the borders of the perineum. So you have anteriorly, you have the symphysis pubis. I mean, it's not really as important like the borders, but I don't know if they'll ask you, and the doctor would ask you or not, but I've given step 1, and I don't think this is as important for step 1. Okay. There are certain things in the lecture which are, but for the exam, just know these. The doctor added more landmarks, by the way, but I limited it to the ones that I'm sure he would ask if he does. So the symphysis pubis anteriorly, posteriorly is the coccyx. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Here's the ischial tuberosities and the sacroiliac ligaments. Okay. Now, the perineum is divided into 2 parts: the anal triangle and the urogenital triangle. Okay. So this perineum that we discussed, this perineum is divided into an upper part, which is the anterior part, which is the urogenital triangle, and the lower part, which is the anal triangle here. Okay, they've shown the divisions here. So the anal triangle is basically sorry, I just got a text. So the anal triangle is basically its border is here at the coccyx, and on each side at the what's it called, ischial tuberosities. Okay, and the urogenital triangle is anteriorly you have the pubic arch, pubic symphysis, and on each side you have the ischial tuberosities. Okay, we will discuss the contents of each of these and how they make up the perineal. Okay, so the thing is, the thing that pops up for in Zoom, like the thing when you screen share, it's like sort of obstructing my view. How do you make this go away? Oh, you can move it. Okay. So we'll start with, but before I start, wait, I just want to discuss this very important structure that is found in the anal triangle. So the anal triangle, Okay, I'll quickly go over what the contents are. So you have the anus, and you have something called the ischiorectal or the ischioanal fossa. Okay, ischioanal fossa. Okay, this is a very important topic, and the doctor emphasized a lot on this in the transcript. So if you see here, you can see like this like fossa kind of area on each side of the anus. Okay, so this is the ischiorectal or the ischioanal fossa. All right, why does this exist? Well, basically, this contains subcutaneous tissue and fat. Okay, and it allows for the expansion of the anus during defecation. Okay, it allows for the expansion of the anus during defecation. This is a view like from bottom up, and this is a like sort of a, I guess you could say, a coronal section. Okay, so this is the anus, and this is the anus here, and on each side of it is the ischiorectal fossa or the ischioanal fossa. This ischioanal fossa is here, and you can see it's full of subcutaneous tissue. Okay. Now, another important thing of the ischioanal fossa is this thing. What is this? This is a neurovascular bundle. It runs through a canal called the Alcock's Canal. Okay, also known as the perineal canal, pudendal canal, I mean. And it contains a neurovascular bundle. It contains the following. It has the pudendal vessels, so artery and vein. It has the pudendal nerve, and it has the perineal nerve as well. Okay, it basically supplies the entire, like the majority of the perineum and the external genitalia. And I would discuss why this is clinically important at the end of the lecture. Okay, now remember, if you recall, we discussed this defect, right? So the same defect, now there's another structure on top of it. Not on top, like more superficially on it, but like inferior to it, because this is an inferior view, okay? There's a picture from Gray's Anatomy. This structure is called the urogenital diaphragm. What it does is it basically, so it is a content of the urogenital triangle. So if we had the anal triangle, we're done with the anal triangle. It contains the anus and the ischioanal fossa, and now we're moving to the urogenital triangle. So if you recall this defect that we discussed, the U-shaped defect, the urogenital triangle, diaphragm, basically covers this defect, okay, and only allows three things. It allows a certain vein known as the dorsal vein, and of the penis and clitoris, and the urethra and the vagina in females. Okay, and we will see more pictures of this later in this lecture. All I want you to know for now is that it basically covers the defect that you have here, and it sort of keeps in place all these different structures that are passing through. So this is also another view of the urogenital diaphragm. So this thing is this. Okay, is this. Okay, I want you to connect these two pictures. This is this, because I had trouble doing this when I was in second year. Okay, so now it's showing you what is basically on top of it, the external genitalia that you have. In the males, you have the roots of, and in the females, you have the roots of the external genitalia. Okay, in females, it doesn't develop, but in males, it basically develops into the penis. And this is the glands of the clitoris. And what's it called? You can see not the defect. It's covering this defect. So this part. So you can see these orifices here. Okay. In males, this orifice, the urethral orifice, is here. Okay. It's covered by the shaft. So I hope you were able to connect these two images. So here's another view, and this is probably like the image that was the hardest for me when I was in second year to understand, what is the orientation of this. So this is the perineal membrane, okay? Perineal membrane. This is the opening for the urethra. So you see this opening, the one here. This is that opening, okay? And this U thing is the attachment of this. So this is where it attaches. This part, this U thing attaches to this, okay? I hope you were able to connect the images. Now, basically, the urogenital diaphragm isn't just any old diaphragm. It actually has two layers. Yeah, it has a superior layer and an inferior layer. Okay. The inferior layer is also known as the perineal membrane, and it sort of folds on the sides. Anteriorly, it folds into the transverse perineal ligament, which is here, this one. Okay. And posteriorly, it folds and connects to some of the fascia that we're going to study later on. So the doctor made like this other slide to connect basically all these different images. So this is the U, and it's connected here, and it contains all the urogenital organs. Okay, like this, not like that. It doesn't include this. So remember the transverse perineal ligament that I mentioned here, this one, the vein that I mentioned, and the transverse perineal ligament. This is that, okay? And this is the vein that it's carrying, okay? So this is the interior portion, and this is the diaphragm. And posteriorly, we're going to discuss these are the transverse perineal muscles. We're going to discuss this in a bit, okay? So again, I hope you guys got the orientation, right? This thing is this, it is also this, and it is also this, okay? So here's the contents of basically the urogenital diaphragm. You can see here the sphincter muscles, the external sphincter muscles, so the voluntary sphincter muscles, are all in the urogenital diaphragm. And posteriorly, you can see the deep transverse perineal muscles. So the ones that I mentioned here, these ones, they're found basically here. Okay? Here. Now, what are the contents? So we discussed some of the contents, which are like some of the muscles, but there's also some other contents the doctor wanted us to know. So there's the membranous urethra, okay? The sphincter uretary muscle, this one. You also have the deep transverse perineal muscles, these ones. You also have a very important structure that's only in the males. So if that's only in the males, it's called the Cooper's gland, also known as the bulbourethral glands. Its job is to lubricate the urethra, basically. Okay. There's also the internal pudendal vessels, so artery to the bulb of the penis and the vein, arteries to the crura of the, and so on. Okay. So if you recall the arteries and the veins that I mentioned that pass anteriorly to these ones. They're talking about these ones here. Okay. Also, you have the pudendal nerve and the pudendal canal as well, which the Alcock's canal, which we're going to discuss more details in a bit. Here's like a lateral view. Okay, I don't know the names of the views, by the way, the coronal or transverse or whatever. I forgot. I studied them in first year and I forgot about them. But this is from the side. Okay, so this is this. Okay, I hope you can connect them. Okay. Now we're gonna come to part 2 of this lecture, and this is also another hard thing about this lecture, and it's also very high. I actually had a question on this in my step 1 exam. Okay, and for sure, they're gonna ask you this in your exam. Okay. Basically, this subtopic is how the fascia of the external genitalia and the perineum link with the fascia of the abdominal wall. If you recall from GI in first year, I think in GI you studied this, you studied the layers of the abdominal wall. Okay. You have the skin, under which you have the fatty layer, also known as the superficial fascia, also known as the Camper's fascia. The way I remember it is that campers, so the guy is camping, so he's not walking around, so he's gaining fat. Okay, so Camper's fascia. Then you have another layer called the Scarpa's fascia. You guys should remember these names from first year. Okay, also known as the superficial fascia is a membranous layer. Okay, superficial fascia is a fatty layer, fascia is a membranous layer. Okay. So what's important, so this is a diagram the doctor drove, and I really like this diagram, although you would find better images on Google, I'm sure, but it basically gives you like a transverse view of what happens to each of these, okay? Also, one more thing I forgot to mention. So you have all these other layers as well. You have the deep fascia that covers the external oblique. This is also important. Okay, then you under that you have all the muscles, the external oblique, internal oblique, transversalis fascia, and the muscle. Okay, but the one, no, 2, 3, and 4 are the ones we're going to be focusing on. So this is the campus fascia. It stops here. Okay, it doesn't continue on the external genitalia. The scarpus fascia, this is very important. Please know this. Okay, the scarpus fascia continues as the collis fascia. The scarpus fascia continues as the collis fascia. They asked me this in my step 1 exam. Please be good at this. Okay, the scarpus fascia continues as the collis fascia. Okay, and the deep fascia, this one, which is the fascia covering the external oblique, continues as the Buck's fascia. Buck's fascia, and this is the main strong fascia that covers the corpus spongiosum, which is in the penis. Okay. Now, another important thing you should know is that collis fascia continues as the dartos fascia around the scrotum. Okay. So campus fascia goes away. It's not in the external genitalia. Scarpus fascia continues as collis fascia. The deep fascia, which is the fascia of the external oblique, it continues as the Buck's fascia. And the collis fascia continues over the scrotum as the dartos fascia. Here's another view that the doctor gave. So this is in the female. So in the male, this is in the male, this is in the female. So in the male, you can see this is the Buck's fascia. There's a very strong ligament. If you study urology in 4th year and you study like these layers, if you watch like videos on it, you can see it's a very tough fascia. So Buck's fascia. Then you have the collis fascia, which we also discussed, which is on top of it, okay, covering it. And then there's more Buck's fascia, okay, here. The Buck's fascia, by the way, is also known as the Gelodetz fascia. I have never heard this word in my life. I don't even remember Dr. Akif mentioning this word. And it's not how you don't know this word. You don't need to remember this, okay? And then under is the perineal membrane. And this is the same structures in the females. You have the collis fascia, the Buck's fascia, and the, okay. I should have deleted the slide. Thing is, the doctor, he mentions, he has like same slides again and again, and I deleted most of them. Okay. And like, so this is a slide, for example, I combined this here, but I forgot to delete this one. Okay. So, so in the female perineum, there's something very important you should know. So you know how here I mentioned, I don't know why the doctor put this all the way here, this slide. I forgot to change it there because this slide is supposed to be here. Because here you're talking about the contents in males of the perineum. And then all the way there, he put a slide of the contents in females. I forgot to put it there, you know. Okay. So what's different is that, remember we mentioned Cooper's glands? Females don't have Cooper's glands, of course. And they also have a vagina. And the sphincter urethrae muscle is basically split by the urethra and the vagina, okay? So in males, the sphincter urethrae muscle is used only by the urethra, while in females, it's also around the vagina. So here's another view of all those layers, okay? This is an image I found from Teach Me Anatomy. For anyone, if you don't know, Teach Me Anatomy is my favorite source of anatomy. It was my favorite source of anatomy in 1st and 2nd year. Okay, it summarizes everything you need. And even now, when I'm in the hospital, I use Teach Me Anatomy, Teach Me Physiology to, like, whenever a doctor is about to ask me a question, I know he's going to ask me a question about something, I quickly just review it from that, and then, you know, I can discuss with him. So, because trust me, they're going to troll you a lot if you don't know and simple basic anatomy, and you're going to forget all of this by 4th year. Okay, so here's another view of it. Now we're going to combine everything we studied into this one image. So you remember this image, okay? You have all these different layers. We're going to translate that into this picture and this picture. I'm going to try to make it as easy as I can. So let's start with the blue, which is the superficial perineal fascia, also known as the collis fascia. Okay, so this blue here is basically this. Okay, the green deep perineal fascia is the Buck's fascia. Okay, the red here is the perineal membrane, this one. This one, perineal membrane. Okay. Perineal membrane. This is the contents of the perineum. So these muscles, the transverse perineal muscles, these ones. Okay. This is this layer, this pink. Okay. It's also known as the deep perineal pouch. And what did I miss from this? Oh yeah, superficial perineal pouch is basically okay. So something very important is that there's also a superficial perineal pouch. So the deep perineal pouch is here. This what so this is the deep perineal pouch, and the superficial perineal pouch is between the collis fascia and the scarpus fascia. Okay, so here. And so by the way, this is the ischio rectal ischio-anal fascia. Okay, and this is the levator ani. Now let's focus on this image now. So we're going to use this image and bring it to like a more realistic image from Netters. So you can see here, this is the collis fascia, also known as the superficial perineal fascia. This is the buccal fascia, also known as the deep, what's it called? Deep perineal fascia. Okay. This is the superficial perineal pouch. Okay. This is the perineal membrane. This one, the red one. This one, perineal membrane. There we go. Okay. Should have included that picture in the slide. And this is over there. This. Okay. So the contents and the top. I hope you guys got oriented and you combined all these different images that I discussed into one. Now, a very, very high yield topic that I was asked in my exam, and I think this also came in my step one, was this wasn't in my step one. This was when I was doing UWorld for step one prep. It was one of the questions. It is trauma of the perineum. Okay. See, when you have trauma here to the perineum, how can that happen? Typically, it happens if someone falls onto their perineum. So if it's like a hard surface, okay, and they like fall like from on top of it directly, okay. So it can also happen if you fall into a manhole or like fall from a very, very long height and you hit basically on your buttocks. So your perineum can get injured, right? Why is this important? Because it can cause damage to the urethra. When you have damage to the urethra, you have filling of urine in between the deep and the superficial perineal fascia, also known as the collis fascia and the scarpus fascia. So here, basically. Okay. Here. All right. So this is a very important clinical correlation I want you guys to understand. I guess that's it. That's the end of the lecture. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. I will send this PowerPoint to the PAL team. It is basically the doctor's PowerPoint, but I just what's it called? Just removed most of the slides. I rearranged the images to make it look nicer and to relate the images better. So here's the QR code that we would like you guys to scan, so you guys can give feedback on the lecture. And that's it.